the reality here, Stuart, and South Africa could have won by 30 or 40 points when you consider the dominance around that scrum. They possibly could have if they maybe opened things up a little bit, particularly when Ireland were down to 12. So,
with that all said, Alan, are you surprised that Andy Farrell seemed to be more proud and courageous and taking the fact that Ireland have won 6-5 in the second half, and he seemed to be a lot of belief? I maybe thought he might be slightly less, upbeat because they did get dominated in various parts of the game. Or as a coach and as a former player, do you think at the end of the autumn, they have been under a wee bit of scrutiny? That was a time to really back your team and say, we're still here and we want to win this Six Nations coming up?
Yeah, look, you have to try and find some positives. If they're completely capitulated and were beaten by 30 or 40 points, it would have been a very damaging loss. I think, like I said, it happens, teams sometimes, if your scrum starts going wrong, it gives a little bit of vulnerability to the opposition. And it's happened me playing for Munster and a few times with Ireland. When you're over in France, it can go wrong, and then you end up getting penalised 4 or 5 times in a scrum, and it's just hard to fix it on the run. If Ireland played South Africa next week, it could be the same, but I would think Ireland would probably be a bit more cohesive and tighter, and maybe in a better position to at least win their own ball and stuff like that. But look, it's always a fear. But I think if you take in the positives out of it, there's still a lot of good players in this Irish team. There's tough players. They stepped up. They were undercooked massively coming into this November series. They tried not to make excuses, which is admirable. But the reality here is, so many of these players were on a Lions tour, a short pre-season, one game before you play a test against the All Blacks, multiple changes then against Japan. Not the most sternest of tests against Australia, and then you face a team who we've seen them do that this year. That result, like, that was a shuddering loss for New Zealand. It's a record score for a team with steeped in history and success and a really high win percentage rate throughout history, and they go there and win 43-10 in Wellington. It's a phenomenal performance. So I'm not saying this would happen to every team, that their scrum would break up like that, but Ireland lost by 11 points. Of course, it could have been a lot more. So I think, you have to go and say, okay, look at the things that we could be better at and what we could have fixed. But well done. You stuck in there. You took a beating, but you kept getting back up and forcing turnovers and winning turnovers on the line. And, as I said, they could have scored another couple of tries there, but bar for Ireland's brilliant and heroic defence at times. It's honour. It's not a result, but I think, like, they've showed a toughness there that you have to try and focus in on that and build on that. Is there concerns there? Absolutely. Do we need to would it be great to get a few new players in the team? Of course. I've said this since the start of the November series, where our depth as regards players being at that level and good enough to play at that level is not where you'd like it to be. There is some players with really serious potential that you would hope can make their mark at international level. But you don't know. And then people have said to me recently, you don't know until you start playing them. But some of these guys are not even making an impact or starting regularly for their provinces. So they've been on emerging Ireland tours and maybe played the A game there a couple of weeks ago. And, what do Ireland do now? Do they make a raft of changes for that first game over in France, in Paris, in at the start of February? No, they don't. I think you have to try and, if you can get 2 or 3 tweaks in a couple of positions with this team, you get Joe McCarthy back. Jamie Osborne is probably out for a fair period of time now, unfortunately, with his shoulder. Hugo Quinlan,
Ryan Baird could be out as well.
Yeah. So they've picked up a few bad injuries as well. So yeah, maybe his hand will be forced a little bit, but a couple of players coming into the team, I think, and maybe that they can reinvigorate themselves. But I think they've looked a little bit. They haven't been back to their best with their attack and their attack shape. I think strategy changed a little bit around the way they played in last year's Six Nations. There was a bit more kicking, trying to find territory first, and I think their attack was effective, and it's the stats show that. I'm not trying to be negative here for the sake of it, but the stats show they were way down in defenders beaten, line breaks, tries scored, 17 scored. Those metrics
If
were
you're
there for
saying their
everybody to see.
scrum got a really bad day on Saturday, their lineout wasn't ideal, and their attack over the last 18 months or maybe hasn't been quite what you think's firing on cylinders, that's a lot of parts of the game. So
It is.
should
They're
we be
good.
worried here?
They're concerned. I would say so. Concerned. Yeah, definitely.
And do you
I
think this Ireland team has peaked, or do you still think they can go to Twickenham and Paris and win those matches?
At the moment, if you're asking me, I'd say both those results are going to be extremely difficult, and it's highly unlikely we'll win them now. But this is difficult for the coaches too, and it's like players at times. You go through bad periods and difficult moments and change, and the Irish coaches and Andy Farrell in particular has got to find ways of tweaking things, improving the attack, improving other facets of their game, like their discipline. Their line out needs work, and maybe you improve that attack strategy and that evasion and maybe some more strike plays that we were so used to seeing in 2022, 23, some in 24. Of course, I thought the first half in Durban in that second test in 24 was outstanding. South Africa came back and got ahead, and then Frawley gets to drop goals. But I thought they deserved to win that game. Last November, I think, was the start of a little bit of a static, lethargic type performances, that zip and energy that we were so used to the previous 2 years. So look, they've got to look at it, peel back some layers, see if they can invigorate and get the energy back and get one or two players in. But as I said, look, even for Andy Farrell, Munster-Leinster play, you jump on a plane 2 days later, they have a week and a half maybe over preparing for the All Blacks, and to me, it's impossible to get up to the speed. International rugby is a different kettle of fish than playing a URC game or come back with your province or even playing a European game. It goes to a different level, and then you're playing against the All Blacks, really. So yeah, I think they've been undercooked, and the hard part is if you had 4 weeks to work with a group of players and go in a training camp and put loads of stuff together and analyze videos and really, of course it's much more beneficial, but it's what the coaches probably will do and have to do now. They'll watch a lot of stuff. They'll watch stuff back a couple of years ago when they did video, when they did some really good stuff in their attack, and they've got to plow on and try to improve.